All right. I am tempted to just let that song play for the whole episode, but
that drawing is so great, Jeff.
It's a little distracting. All right. Hi, guys.
Yoo-hoo.
Thanks, man.
Hi, fellas.
What's up?
That drawing today is so good. When did you do that from?
That is in a sketchbook. Glad that you asked, because
I'm glad I asked too.
What it takes to be a successful professional artist. And I think one of the things is practicing in your off time.
Wait, what? Off time? What?
I know, it's a strange concept.
Tell us more about this mysterious off time.
I know. I find time to draw on my sketchbook.
There she is.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh la
la. Stuff that I don't know how to draw, stuff I'm not comfortable drawing, stuff that's fun to draw. I know that some people don't do that. It's one of my things that keeps it interesting for myself. But it is, you have to want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find ways to keep the art alive and not just necessarily doing the same thing every time.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's good to see you. So tonight, we didn't really have a guest, or we didn't have a book that we wanted to share panel by panel. So we thought we would just talk about what it means to be a professional artist, comic book artist, animation artist, storyboard artist, character design, graphic design. I mean, they're all kind of the same when it comes to habits, I think. Different expressions of the skill sets, but I think getting the skill sets is all pretty similar. What do you guys think?
I was told that we were going to be discussing bone number 1, so I'll just be rolling with this as quickly as possible. And I guess I'll put away all of my Jeff Smith artwork that I've already spent the whole day uploading.
Oh, well, I mean, that's one of the things. You got to roll with the assignment, Steve.
True.
Your deadline and your mission changed. So now what are you going to do?
It sure did. Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Sorry about that.
Well, Jonesy.
Yeah.
What do you have with you this evening?
What are you drinking there?
Oh, excellent question. And sorry I missed the preamble, guys. For those of you at home, I literally jumped on as Jeff went live, if not perhaps a few seconds behind.
That's all right.
Also, welcome to the art of. Leisha and I just ordered a bunch of stuff online because I realized that we have nothing in the house, so I had to go back to my old beautiful standby, a liter of Mexican Coke.
Beautiful. Classic. Scott, what do you got there?
I got some red wine.
Nice.
Vino
Rojo. Some sake in a cup that I made myself.
Wow.
You made the cup yourself?
I did. I did.
That looks like one of the weird drinks that the Sand People drink in Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
The story of this cup is that it is incredibly ugly, and I made it during a class, and that even though it's a hideous piece of art, I still love it.
It's just got to work. As long as it works, as long as it gives you the drink, good to go.
So speaking of a subject that I just introduced, as I'm trying to work my way through, briefly, before we get into this important heady topic that Jeff has devised.
Mean this topic?
Those sweet forbidden secrets. Yes, exactly.
We will, Daryl. We will.
But we're going to talk about Bone a little bit first, because we did throw Steve a curveball. Hang on 1 second.
No, you're gonna throw me a bone.
Exactly. Am I gonna have to get mine off the shelf too?
Nah. Well, Bone deserves more than just a slapdash reference at the beginning of a.
Absolutely not.
Of secrets of the internet that Jeff is led to believe. I mean, we may as well just call this episode "Free Beer."
Right. I mean, this was the homework.
So good.
That's a nice book.
Yeah. I mean, it
deserves
the whole collection.
It deserves a lot of time.
It does.
Still in black and white, Jeff?
Yeah. I have the color edition somewhere, but I like it in black and white better.
Totally.
I do too.
All right. I'm going to briefly go off script just because I just watched an episode of the Book of Boba Fett today.
Okay.
hearing a lot of people complain or not complain or what, and I realized it's like, right, it really feels like it's the Adventures of Temuera Morrison, like it in a onesie, and not quite so much. Like it really makes me think or wonder, and maybe this information's already out there, that like that Jon Favreau and those guys must have developed the Mandalorian initially as Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point somebody said you can't use Boba Fett. And so then they just like repurpose everything they'd come up with for a show about Boba Fett, and they created this new character, the Mandalorian, and it led to all this. But when you think about like who Mandalorian was at the beginning of season 1, and like he was just this cold guy with a code, and like it all just feels like it is Boba Fett, And now this, I love Temuera Morrison. Once for Warriors is one of my favorite movies. But as I was watching this really well-directed, amazing cinematography by Dean Cundey, from John Carpenter fame, all the great storyboarding that, that Filoni's team had to do. I'm just watching it. I'm like, this is a really interesting science fiction story. I don't know that I think this older bald guy is Boba Fett, but I interesting things are happening to him, in
Right.
this interesting universe that I recognize. But anyway.
Cool.
He does kind of look like Bone.
Now, Temuera Morrison and Boba Fett. This is how you become a comic book artist.
All right. Somebody dish a forbidden secret. Let's go.
Okay. Well, so I think I pulled out on the bookshelves I have close to my desk. I pulled out just a bunch of books that I've studied over the years. And so if you want to learn how to be a comic book artist and you don't want to say go to the Cooper School like Scott did, you can study on your own. And I will share some of these books as we go through the evening. Just no particular order. Anything by Mobius.
Ooh.
Lovely book.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely.
All right. So I know you guys have looked at Mobius and studied Mobius. What did you get from him?
Wow. What don't you get from Mobius? I mean, he is kind of the complete package of the thing. He's a little bit dizzying, I think, in some levels for me of looking at him, where it's hard to like pinpoint and get one thing or another. You can get the facial expressions, you can get all the different drawing stuff, and yet he hides it and blends it so well with his color that it just becomes one synonymous piece. It's hard to, and then there is all the great color theory and the strength and control with all that stuff.
Right.
Whew.
Yeah. So I mean, in the end, I think I have three things that I'll wait to the end to share for like what I think are the real secrets of being a professional artist.
Why are you going to make us wait till the end? Tell us now.
Nope. That's not how it works. We're going to wait all the way to the end, and then I probably still won't say anything. One of the things I like about Mobius, the reason that I keep going back to him, is he does something that I think a great comic book artist and great just storyteller does. He creates a complete and utterly believable and unique world. Like, there's nothing about a Mobius world that isn't supposed to be in the Mobius world. It's when you dive into one of his stories, you are 100% in that universe. And I think that's something that I know Scott really does well. Like when you read a Scott book and it's set in the Flash universe, like everything in that universe fits to that story. Like nothing's out of place and it's the same. Everything is consistent. And I think that that's one of the things that a comic book artist and a storyteller, whether you're an animator or a storyboard artist, like you really have to be able to create a believable and consistent world.
Yeah, I highly agree. He is one of the masters at that, where he can put anything that he wants in that world, but when it's all said and done, it's still also a very Mobius world, even though it feels very real or authentic and all those things that you could get into it and believe it. It's also a world that doesn't come off like anybody else's world. It's not John Buscema, it's not Jack Kirby, it's not Winsor McKay, it's not any of those other people.
Yeah, all the best artists do create that. I mean, Frazetta, even Jeff Smith on Bone, like everything in this book, even though the characters are wildly, like you would think that they're discordant, they fit together beautifully. Everything in it is 100% supposed to be there, from the rat creatures to Bone, to the dragon. It's all great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. The other one I grabbed off my shelf, just Starhawks.
Oh yeah.
I've had this since I was a kid, and I've drawn everything, every panel out of it, from every page. Like, I think at one point it's falling apart, right? So yeah. There's even like notes in here. So
give us a few close-ups.
All right, hang on a second. I will do that. Let's do this.
I don't think I had seen it before I had seen your copy.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
Look how old that thing is.
Great montage-y, non-montage cover.
It's classic. It's classic Gil Kane. And then it's all
and very
done.
much that same method we were talking about, is that it's a Gil Kane world that, is very idiosyncratic to him.
Yeah, it's a newspaper strip, so it was done landscape style.
Yeah.
Oh, so this must have inspired Post Warriors.
100%. Right.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Great.
Hey, Scott.
I mean, I owe Gil Kane forever for
Beautiful
teaching me how to draw an upshot of a face.
Yes. I mean,
yeah.
Also, just his particular technology and the way he lays out a panel and the way he draws the figure, right?
Yep.
So I think one of the other things that I got, the same as Mobius, like creating a world, right? That's something that's always really motivating for me as a storyteller, is to try and create, like, what the panel is just a window into that other universe. So I always feel that if I can do that, then I've succeeded in transporting the reader to it. But I definitely think that studying someone who has like, the thing I really got from Gil was how to draw a figure, like how to move a figure and make it look interesting and dynamic, and have it, even though even his sitting characters are about to move.
Yep.
All right, Scott, your turn. What do you got?
Mine, the thing that I was thinking of more was about the advice that I got around the time when I was breaking in, or as I was taking my first jobs. I was getting more advice at that point that had a lasting effect on me. Like my first interview after actually it was during my second year of the Kubert School. Bart Sears was one of my teachers, and he set me up with an interview with Archie Goodwin, who had been working with at that time. And I showed Archie the set of pages that I had, which, by the way, Bart let me know even before I went off for the interview. He told me, he's like, okay, you're not ready, but Archie's willing to talk to you before you're ready. So I go in there and I show him the pages that I had. I think it were Punisher pages from some assignment we had at the school. And I just had crazy camera angles all through every panel of what was going on with the action and how it was resolved and everything. Everything was a top-down shot, an up shot, a shot through the limb of a tree, and all these different things going on. And Archie's really great advice was, way too much. Calm down your camera angle so we can just kind of follow it along as you're doing stuff. And then when you get to a special moment, when you're introduce something dramatic or this or that, then you pick that different angle, but you use it sparingly,
right,
as an effect almost, or something to help the flow of the page. But like,
give me a second.
So in this page,
nice.
Ooh, pretty.
We've got the Nightwing statue, and we're wrapping up with our main character here. What's her name? I forgot.
Is that the Tagger?
Yeah, but she's got that other name. Oh, Lord's sakes, I can't believe I forgot the name. Anyway, they had dated and they had broken up or whatnot. So this is them kind of making up after that. But so I have a fairly regular shot here, even if it's an upshot on the statue. Mm-hmm. So you have a little bit of an impression on it. And then you go to a nice, again, horizontal, regular camera eye, level eye with the head view of them hugging and doing okay. And then he takes off. This will lead into my next piece of advice. But then we have the down angle, which works with the flow of the page. And then the shot of the two of them talking as Orca, we're recapping up the other part of the story. And then we have the cliffhanger ending where she's looking off panel that there's something very dramatic on the next page. The other big piece of advice that I got was that early on when I was picking all these shots and I was pulling out different camera angles or different things for the story, I often was at a loss for what was actually like a basis criteria for why to pick this certain shot versus another shot. It all just seemed a little bit haphazard, a little bit random at the beginning. Like, I don't know, well, this one could be a close-up, this one could be a this, and whatever going on. One of the things that Jim Shooter gave me when I was working on stuff was to think of it being basically one of two choices is how he broke it all down. And then you can get more detailed after that. It's either an action shot. So then his rule would always been a full figure that the action's going on, or you show at least the whole action. There would have been the hugging.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either an action shot or it's a reaction shot. So there's a close-up. And he would show me Jack Kirby pages with the Fantastic Four, whatever it was. So you'd always have a shot of the Thing or somebody duking it out in the background. And then in the foreground, on the edge of the camera, in the corner of the panel or something like that, was Sue or somebody going, oh no, there's a monster, or whatever the action was.
Right.
So he broke it down for me going like, is this panel action? Is that the main gist of this panel that we're showing action going on? Or is this a reaction panel dealing with the action just happened or setting up the next action that's going to happen? Right. And then occasionally you have those combos that are almost like a cover or a bigger presentation piece where, like I said, you'd have the Thing punching somebody in the middle of the panel and Sue or somebody would have been in the foreground reacting to the situation that's going on.
I like that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's a really great way to succinctly put it: action and reaction.
It totally gave me a basis, a framework to start from, going like, oh, what do I have to do in this thing? What did they ask me to do? Which would also help me decipher through the scripts as I would get them, where maybe even the writer, if he had written full scripts, which I usually have worked from, I haven't written or worked from that many plots, though I can. Sometimes the writer wasn't even sure. As he's describing the panel, he's telling me what he needs, but he might even mentioning both. And he might have even think like he's mentioning the punch or whatever happening in the foreground first, and then talking about, Sue or Storm or somebody in the background reacting from the situation. I'm like, oh, right. But no, see, that's not the thing. That's not how you do it. Now, again, you can always change it up and then do other choices at different times to change up the page and give variety and that sort of thing. But yeah, that was one of the great pieces that Shooter gave me, was this one of the two. And I go, oh, okay, that makes an easy thumbnail choices when you're breaking down a page. And then you can just play with it more from there, make it more complicated, do other things, but it gives you that starting line.
I like that. And plus also the fact that one of the other secrets that I learned early on was talking to experts, right? Talking to someone who knows more than you. And you talk to Archie Goodwin and Jim Shooter, right? Those are two good guys to go to. Steve, you've done a ton of comics, but you do mostly storyboards and stuff now. And like one of the things, I think that the action reaction stuff, I knew about it when I was doing comics, but it wasn't until I really started doing boards that I began to understand what Scott's talking about, I think, because it's so much of when you cut, you're cutting back and forth between action and reaction and then antic anticipation and all that stuff. Do you have any rules of thumb for that?
I mean, sorry, my brain is still trying to catch up with.
We're still on bone.
Like there's the thing where like Joker on the Garcia Lopez Hulk Batman story.
So good.
Joker's walking in front of Batman, which is the actual action of the panel.
Right.
And then Hulk is reacting to it in the foreground. And then it's reading left to right. So you read the action first, and then Hulk is responding to that action.
Well, that's a beautiful thing you can do in comics. You can do it in film and animation as well, but I think it's meant to be done in comics, right? Where we read left to right. So the fact that you can have something happen in the left side of the panel and have the reaction or a second action within the same panel is an amazing thing that is somewhat unique to comics, I think. Because in comics you're always dealing with space, right? Like your space is limited. You've got 22 pages a month if you're in a mainstream book. If you're not doing your comic as like more of anime, manga, not anime, manga style like trade paperback, then you are limited in the amount of space that you have to tell your thing. And so those the gutters, the space between the panel borders, they become these little time warps that allow you to edit time so that you can create and maintain and control your space. It's like, and there could be, we've seen a lot more in the past 25 years. I feel like Jeff Smith's someone who really is bringing it back to Bone, that really did this a fair amount with his animation background. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. I'm finding it strange. Jeff brings up books, and it's like, in my new house for the first time ever, I'm not surrounded by all my books.
Right, you haven't put your library back in.
I feel a little, well, and it may not go in this room. The office space is limited. I've got all of my Disney Infinity figures, of course, because
those are great.
Hey, let's take a second here. Let's toast Jones's new place.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
New studio,
Happy
new house.
move-in.
But I'm actually liking the not being surrounded by books, which is what I've usually done for 30 years. But anyway, I think, so if you don't have an unlimited amount of space, to, like, one of our friends is writing a story for me to illustrate, and I remember, like, part of me is still thinking that it's like, it's a great idea for, if I were doing it as a storyboard, what he's asking for is kind of like a shot that starts in like from a helicopter above the desert. And then we sort of zoom down onto like a road. And then as these like, this motorcycle gang's kind of like barreling toward us on that road. And the way it's a very good script written by an artist as well. So it's sort of just written as like shot one, like above the desert. Shot two, we're kind of about halfway down toward the road, seeing more detail. Shot three, we've got the big establishing shot of all these bikers in the thing. But I remember thinking, like, if I were boarding it, I'd want to give myself the opportunity to do like a bunch of series of cut-ins, maybe of like a close-up of some hands, like, revving the accelerator, a close-up of some, maybe a boot on the bike, like a whole bunch of other details that there just isn't going to be space to do in the comic version unless I just expand our page count. Which
it's all really small panels.
Exactly.
Right. Or you draw small panels, which is then dependent upon the scripting that's involved with it. If there's already a lot of script involved, then you can't necessarily jam extra panels or other stuff in there. You run out of room.
But yeah, so that's, I think, an amazing thing about comics is that you're always editing time to create that space. And with storyboarding, on the one hand, you ostensibly have unlimited time, because you kind of have to show everything, but then you also do need to cut around that stuff because you can't just be, your episode still only has a certain amount of time. Films, you can have more flexibility in how long it is, but people are probably going to not want to watch a 5-hour Disney animated feature,
Steve, but do you find when you're doing those things that the directors you're working with more often than not, they probably want you to try 5 or 6 different things to add in and get texture to the story or get some extra grit to it, or those extra little knock-in scenes or whatnot, and then they can kind of edit and choose and pick for you, or would they rather you just kind of choose it out?
It depends on film or TV, I would say. Like, I have not storyboarded for animated features, but a lot of the friends and colleagues that I know that have, their story sounds like it very often is like, hey, here's an idea for a scene, or here's a script for a scene, and then they storyboard it, and then they might just keep storyboarding the same scene over and over. And as they get more input from different people or different stuff, like Jeff and I's storyboarding experience is primarily in TV, and I think it's more like being a monthly comic book artist, whereas it's very rare, Scott, to have. Jeff may have had a little bit more of that experience than I am doing some direct-to-video movies at Warner Brothers. But direct-to-video videos at Warner Brothers still have a pretty tight budgetary constraint and time constraint. So it's not like working on a feature at at Pixar, Disney, or DreamWorks, where you might have years to just be like storyboarding one sequence and attacking it from 70 angles. So it's a little bit like if Jeff and I have gotten a script for an animated TV series, then 9 times out of 10, your director just wants the most efficient, quickest, coolest way that you could do it, and wouldn't be like, hey, show me 11 different ideas for this scene, because there just isn't time, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the things that's interesting, Scott, is and I think that translates to comics too, is like, how do you pick the shot? Like what are you choosing? Not just is it an action or a reaction, but what bit of information are you trying to communicate? Like Steve talked about adding the twisting of the accelerator or the throttle or the foot changing the gear. Like those are quick little moments, and they tell the story pretty quick and efficiently. With that, like you could do a long shot of a guy speeding up, but it's more immediate and emotional if you see the hand rev the throttle and you hear the throttle, or you could show them changing gears from far off. But like you getting like, what is it you're trying to show? And I think that you showed this Jose story.
Yeah.
This is one of the ones I also had on my bookshelf. One of the things, like
I put it up first.
Right. So
but you got a tiny one.
Yeah. I mean, I was poor, and so we had I got what I could get. But I like it because it's broken down like it's just a few panels on a page.
Oh, it's one of those. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because there's only so much that they wanted to shrink it. If they would have shrunk to get the whole page on there, you would have
you couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let me show. Well, one of the things I think is great about Jose is he not only draws everything beautifully, he makes excellent choices, right? Like when he draws something like that hand and showing the matchbook, right? Like he uses his space in a way that is not only efficient but beautiful. And I think that's one of the things that's really hard to do. Like as a storyteller, you have to match those two things together. You have to be succinct, but you also have to be compelling. And it's a delicate balance, I think.
Completely.
Off the top of my head, the 2 artists that I can think of, comic book artists that do that best, sort of the equivalent of cinematic cut-ins on close-ups, are Frank Miller and Eduardo Risso. Like, I feel like Eduardo and 100 Bullets, almost always there would be a signature kind of panel and moment in each page, but then within it, there might be just a series of boxes, of like pretty small boxes that kind of give you the equivalent of as if you were watching something kind of like Martin Scorsese rapid editing style, where you got a series of close-up cuts of something before you cut to the wider view of the scene.
Right. So
thank you, Dave Dye, by the way. I very much am certainly gunning for a sponsorship by the New Zealand All Blacks, and I'll just keep wearing their stuff until the checks start showing up, or a giant member of the All Blacks shows up to do a haka on my front lawn.
There you go. And we should answer, I guess, David here asked if we're all on the East Coast. Actually, none of us are on the East Coast.
Right.
Steve and Jeff are both on the West Coast, definitely, and I am mountainous West Coast. I'm in Arizona, so we are all just about as far as you can get from the East Coast on the mainland.
American style. Jeff and I are in the West Coast Avengers currently.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So another piece of advice I got, Jeff, real quick.
Sure.
It's from your hero.
Which one?
I got to meet Alan Davis at a San Diego con many years ago. Early on when I was breaking in. I had been in a couple of years. In fact, I even gave him a piece that John Holdridge and I had done together. We drew a black cat piece, and I gave it to him at the con. Probably didn't mean anything to him. But since I met him and did that and chatted with him for 2 seconds, I asked him, I had my portfolio ready for him to look at, which I don't think he looked at. He didn't want to. But I said that I was a recent, broken the industry in the last couple of years. And did he have any advice for me? And I was holding up my art, expecting that I was going to get some art advice. Like I said, he didn't want to even look at it. He just looked at me and he said, "Don't let them take away your vacation time."
That's
and at the time, I'm like, What? That's it? That's what you're gonna tell me?
Yeah. That's the most important advice you probably ever got.
That was total sage advice, man. Over the years,
Right.
wow, he really knew.
Well, he was a pro, right? Like it's because it's not just about like being an artist is about the art, obviously, but it's also about being a professional and being able to balance your health and your work and your home life
Yeah,
and all of that
you can
stuff.
burn yourself out easy.
Well,
Yeah.
Jeff, what was the showing off Mobius and Gil Kane? What were they that? What question were they the answer to?
So I think I was going to say at the end, but I'm going to skip ahead. So one of the first things to be a professional, right, is find experts and learn from them, right? So the thing that you figure out, so focus study, I think is what's really important. Like it's one thing to study Gil Kane, and Gil Kane is great at everything. But the thing like that I particularly wanted to learn is how he imbued every figure with dramatic tension. Right. So I studied all the figures and I really focused on like, what about this is exciting and interesting. And then when it comes to like Jeff Smith or Mobius creates these worlds. Like, how does he do that? Like, what is it about this world that's unique? Like, why is this so believable? And then I think whenever I studied anyone, whether it's Alan Davis or Rick Leonardi or John Buscema, like I always really focused on not just how well they drew, but what it was they were drawing and why and what I could get from it. Like I almost thought of it as doing scales on an instrument.
Yeah.
So Steve was talking a lot about basically how to make a movie. And I think that that's a lifelong pursuit. And like when I first started doing storyboards, I'd been doing comics for 20 years and I first started doing storyboards and my director / teacher said, okay, you got some skills, you understand this. I think it'll take you about 4 or 5 years to get good at this. And it did. It took a long time to figure out how to put the story together.
Hey, Christopher.
And part of that study was he told me to read this book. And I did.
Nice one.
Right. So part of being a storyteller is learning how to tell the story in different mediums, like whether it's writing, drawing, making a movie. And then The 5 C's of Cinematography is a really great book to study. So if you're putting together your curriculum, so far you have Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Mobius, and then The 5 C's.
What were the 5 C's?
You have to buy the book. I'm not gonna
close up.
No, it's
camera angle.
You have to buy the book.
Oh, come on, give me one of them.
No. We'll go. Maybe we'll go over that book because it's a big book and it's got a lot of information in it. But
all right, cool.
I think, like Scott, I know that when you study stuff, like you approach, like you draw pretty much everything out of your head. And I know that you do that. I've watched you draw cityscapes and then everything you draw is believable. And I think because you've studied what kind of building this is, what kind of neighborhood is this, what kind of cars are going to be in this neighborhood, and all of it fits together. And I know that I've watched you just, which one's that? Yes, hang on a second. Oh, good God.
Lordy, Lord.
That's nice. Well, that's all the basics, right? That's perspective.
Yeah.
Crazy
perspective and everything else. And one of the reasons this worked out as well as it did, again, with me working with Jeff Johns, one of the reasons he liked this so much when we were starting this was that I told him that I picked this view because we're starting with the lightning and then we go into the rogues and how they're doing their stuff. But this is the rebirth Barry Allen flash time. And I told him when I picked this shot for doing Keystone, I said I wanted to do it from the vantage point of basically the lightning, Barry Allen's perspective coming from the Force, Speed Force, and then coming in. And he thought that was great and brilliant. He really enjoyed it.
That's a great reason.
It's part of that storytelling.
Hey, is that graphic novel still out? That collection still available?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's still in print.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Battle Crisis Rogue's Revenge. It's one of my favorite books that we ever did. It was really so much fun. And there were so many pages and panels that, I mean, really cool, simple stuff as far as dealing with zoom and all of that was great. But then actually one of my favorite angles on some of this was doing this Captain Cold stuff. And then I'm playing with what's going on in the layout, like that giant headshot that's behind all the panels. Playing with different angles of that kind of stuff. Or there was another one in here. I was really having fun with how things were being presented. And here I actually got to go a bit George Perezi, where we're going in on Iris in the house. But I think Jeff had only asked for like, the usual 4 or 5 panels. But, I made the first one, the house, and then her going in and she's looking at all of these memories of photos and stuff like that, but then going into her eye and then showing this whole great reminiscing, putting everybody in there. Jeff didn't ask for half of that stuff.
Right.
And then even I think this shot of her crying wasn't in the script.
Scott's just very generous.
She's responding and she thinks she hears the voice.
He is a generous storyteller, that's for sure.
Well, it's one of those things to me when I'm working with really good writers, and it's happened in a bunch of different scenarios. They'll hit me with, the basics of what they need out of this page to carry the story and get it through to the finish line by the last page and stuff like that. But if they're really doing their job, in some ways, they should be making it very difficult for me. I should have extra versions of each panel that they're giving me going like, oh, that would be really cool to do from this angle or from this one. Oh, wait. But then I have to think how they will build to each other and then play it out the end of it. Like here's King Shark. And again, we're starting with talky stuff between the characters and being in what's her name? The lady head of Suicide Squad.
Amanda Waller.
That's her. But King Shark is telling her how he's going to work in Suicide Squad from now on after they came back after this last mission. Right. And he's going to pick and choose his own thing. So we're finding out here piece by piece that yes, he's working with the Suicide Squad guys. He's breaking into a place and then breaking into these cages and stuff. And it's leading to that storytelling moment where you want to turn the page because then you find out that there are kids in these cages.
Gotcha.
So King Shark is saying, yes, I'll work for you. I'll do your dirty work. I'll even, possibly kill people, whatever it needs to be. But I'm going to help pick these missions and we're going to do things that are right and just and not just dirty work for the government kind of deal. We're going to make this worthwhile.
You really turned King Shark into kind of a hero.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, there's I like the way that Tim Seeley wrote him through most of the series. Even at the beginning, he played it off like he could have been a kind of a simpleton. His language isn't very deep and it's not, he's not using complicated words or anything. But there's quite often several times throughout the series where King Shark gets to, if you'll excuse the pun, the meat of what's important about that scene or whatever, the friendship that he develops with, I'm still forgetting her name.
Amanda Waller?
No, the almost girlfriend that's in here. Defacer is the female co-headliner, kind of like for the storyline. And they wind up building this really nice friendship and relationship. In fact, at the very end of the series, when she's looking off the panel after wrapping things up with Nightwing, the very next page was so much fun to do because then she turns around and sees it's him coming in on a Suicide Squad in a government, kind of vertical takeoff plane or whatever. Right. And then he invites her along with going, come on, we got another adventure. Let's go.
I love that plane, Scott.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's, do you think?
You know what's funny? I looked around for plane after plane after plane, shot after shot of shot. It could have been a helicopter. Right. It could have been all sorts of things. I was going to try this and try that. Nothing was working. This one I drew out of my head.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's a very believable VTOL vehicle, but that doesn't exist. Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
It's great.
How you doing? So I really did enjoy that angle about King Shark with Tim writing it. So it gave me lots of visuals that I could play with and move forward with of like, he's a kind of fun, goofy character, but at the same time, he's very heartfelt and he's very direct and he is very much a good guy.
Right. I like that. Steve, what are you working on there? Are you working on work?
I am. I'm yes.
Okay. Well, I think,
that's another part about being a professional artist.
yeah,
is
I think
Don't
that,
have
that
our
was,
work.
that's
I was
really good,
up-
is because there's the deadline's the deadline.
Yeah,
Right.
I was up, but
Bye.
Come by.
I mean, I think Jeff, you make there's a lot of right. Okay, so you want to be a professional artist. I think the artist that you named, Scott's one. Like you, how do you create that consistent worldview? How do you be a world builder? And there's really no way to get around like just having to learn all the basics, right? Like, and the ideal is that you master them so well that you could draw everything in the world out of your head without any reference. There's not that many artists like that that are at that super high level, but there are some, and lots of other people use a lot of model reference, photo reference, Google reference to sort of try to figure out how they're going to draw the whole world. But I think what's so appealing about any of those artists, and the thing that's going to give you such a leg up if you're trying to be a professional artist, is just, and the only way to develop that sort of worldview is by learning how to draw everything in the world, not just the things that you're interested in, because you're going to get those scripts from your writers, or if you come up with a story, you're not going to be able to make a story that just all exists in a blank, white room. You're going to have to draw things that you don't know how to, but also thinking about, so I think that's huge, right? Is that all these artists that we've mentioned so far, part of why they're so good is that they just really buckled down and they went beyond just learning the basics to mastering them to such a degree that their way of drawing, just a cigarette or a woman or a car or anything that they're inventing is just really unique and distinct because they mastered that. But then finding heroes and role models, both artistically and in terms of seeking them out, like Scott's mentioning people that he interviewed and talked to and stuff. I think another really important thing that people don't always think about, even if you're smart enough to realize that you need mentors and you need role models and you need people that you're going to be looking at artistically or try to seek out their advice, is it's really important to network laterally as well. You need friends and people that you're going to be working with and coming up with, like you inspire each other, you hopefully compete with each other in a supportive, friendly way. You learn from each other. Like it'd be just like if you're trying to if you and all of your friends were trying to play and unlock a video game together, and then it'd be like, oh, hey, on level 6, if you hit punch, punch, kick, you can get past this guy or something like that. Like having artistic, aspiring professionals to be trying to share the secrets that you're unlocking together, whether it's like, oh, hey, I figured out if you draw a hand like this, that's really helpful. It really helps artistically and it helps business-wise too, because especially when you're trying to break into being a professional artist, it's very difficult sometimes to, if you're lucky, maybe you can get Archie Goodwin or Alan Davis's opinion and communication for 5 minutes at a con. And I know in Jeff's case, it was a matter of going consistently to conventions and drawing samples and showing them to some of the same people over and over.
Yep.
So that he could then, I know Jeff met an editor and writer and he kept seeing him, and then that writer and editor kept seeing that Jeff was improving. And so over time, they kind of built a relationship. So that then when that new aspiring editor may not be able to feel like they can just call up Jeff Darrow or Barry Windsor Smith, and they're going to want to use someone new because they don't, no editor wants to call the most famous comic book artist in the world to be turned down. They may be very more likely to use someone that's not experienced. But I also, the other thing is I feel like if you build a big lateral network amongst your friends and fellow aspiring people, besides the fact that you can help each other artistically leveling up, someone's going to be that first person to kind of get that in. And if you have a true, friendship and network and stuff that you've created, then
that person might be the person that helps you, or you might be the person that helps them, and you kind of all rise together. And I think, like different people have different experiences, but I think certainly the three of us in this group, Jeff and I have been friends since high school, and having the same dream, I think, helped us achieve those dreams in a way. We know friends that had a different path, that walked it much more alone and kind of figured out everything on their own. But I think,
but always better with friends.
Well, and also one of the nice things about having, cohorts, is that they can help you with not only like with the skills, but actually they can model for you. They can provide, the moral support of stuff. I know that someday I'm going to put a book together. I have hundreds of semi-embarrassing Polaroids of all of you guys punching and flying and driving cars and sitting and typing and having coffee and all the things that like you're drawing a page. You're like, oh crap. What does it look like when someone's getting into a car? Like, I can't, like, how does that, and you just take a Polaroid, or you have a buddy pose, and it gives that believability to your drawings.
And we were modeling our heroes, having grown up and seeing like, oh wow, Frank Frazetta posed for this Al Williamson, drawing.
That was hugely important to see when in those art books of those guys, that you'd see that they were doing that sort of thing. That's super important.
Or I broke in learning to draw, helping Jeff draw backgrounds, when he was slammed with deadlines, and
there you go.
Jeff's had that for 40 years.
I've had this book forever. And in here they do have pictures of Frazetta and him posing for things. So it's being able to see that, right? And I think that it opened up this entire world, like, oh, I can just take a picture? Well, that makes it so much easier. I don't have to learn all this every time before I start drawing.
Well, absolutely. And you help each other, with actual jobs. Like, Jeff was the first to get in, and then he was new and inexperienced. And so even though he was great, it was still a lot of work. So then it was like, well, shit, Steve, it would help me tremendously if I could pay you a little bit to draw backgrounds in some of these panels, because I'm just too freaking slammed.
Well, let me translate what Steve said right there. I was going to get fired if I couldn't meet the deadline, and I needed someone to help me.
I couldn't copy Jeff's style well enough to be able to draw Jeff's style, but I could fake my way through backgrounds that he would help set me up with a perspective and vanishing point and maybe photo reference. And this was in a much harder time when, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet, so it was a lot harder to figure out what the spaceship in Galactic Storm looked like than it would be now.
Absolutely. G. Weber Arts here says the cell phones are lifesavers. Oh yeah, I'm using mine constantly throughout the time of taking a shot of my hands, or a shot of a toy, or a shot of something else I might be using as reference to help it go down, or to give it a little extra better drawing and oomph instead of just out of my head. I have one other major piece of advice I was given at one point, but it was actually somewhat more of a warning. Was that, all right, so
hang on a second. All right. There you go. Oh, look at that.
Again, we got some king chart, right? Well, at one point when I was at Baltimore Con, right when my end of the flash run was happening, I saw George Perez at the con, and he kind of blew me away, super happy in the fact that I was busy working there on something, and I saw him from a little bit of a distance come actually walk up to my table. And he was super cool, chatted with me for a little bit, said he'd heard good things, so he wanted to come and see for himself what was going on. And I had something like this, but it was a flash page at the time, that I had on the table that he could see. And he just gave me that look, like one brother to another. He's like, if you keep drawing all this detail, they're going to want it all the time.
Yeah. You're going to be hoist on your own petard.
And he was completely right. Once I had done one of those first crazy backgrounds with Jeff on the flash stuff, when Grodd had done damage to Keystone, and we backed up at the end and showed the whole kind of path of destruction of the city. Jeff saw that and he's like, oh, okay, we're going to keep doing that. Every couple issues of the Flash, we're going to do that again. Even though I talked to the inker at the time, and the inker's like, "You are killing me, dude."
Yeah, well, that's how you're always. I think that's one of the most important. If I'm gonna, one of the secrets is that you're always auditioning for your next gig, right? Like you have to always be, to use Steve's term, leveling up, but also you always have to be making sure that your last job will get you your next job.
Always be closing. Always be closing.
Always be closing. But to go back,
I just want to continue with what we're saying too, of like how much we've all like, I helped Jeff with his backgrounds. Then I grumpily got some work faster than we anticipated, so I couldn't keep helping Jeff with backgrounds, much to probably everyone's chagrin. And then there's times in the 90s where we definitely helped each other of like, oh, I'm totally behind on this deadline. Jeff's going to lay out this page for me and I'm going to clean it up, or helped each other with storyboarding. I think even like 20 years ago, Dan helped me with like scene descriptions back on,
some of the best writing ever in a storyboard.
With the way that storyboards have become so digital now, I haven't had to do a scene description in a storyboard in a long time, but you used to have to do them even in Storyboard Pro or Toon Boom, but they used to be sort of crucial. And so, you're sitting there, you draw the whole thing, and then you also have to like write basically a description of what's happening in the panel. And one time I was
doing little Kirby notes.
I was staying up so late, I was so slammed, and Dan was nice enough to come over. And anyone that is a fan of Dan's art hopefully also follows him online and knows how goddamn funny he is. And so Dan was just putting all this artistic flourish into every single one of my scene descriptions. And I think I ended up hearing years later that all the people, when they read that particular storyboard, they're like, "What are these scene descriptions?" It's like a novel. No, it's like.
Well, yeah, Scott, because what the scene description is basically in the olden days, they would photocopy the storyboards and then send them overseas. And sometimes the copying wasn't the best or whatever, the detail wasn't the best. And so a drawing might be vague. Then you would have a scene description that says Flash runs in,
right?
Flash turns like speed, like all this stuff. And so they're incredibly boring, like just the meat and potatoes of the thing. And then you get these incredibly beautifully written prose story, like scene descriptions of like the Flash runs in and skids to a halt in front of his nemesis. Right. And so people are like, what is happening here?
That's the kind of stuff Dan was doing.
Oh yeah, but much better than that. Oh, it's good.
There's a great where it's like I had like I think I was working on Dragon Tales, so it was just like this thing for kids, and Dan, where it was literally like Andy or whatever the kids. Andy raises up one hand to emphasize his point. He then raises a second hand to further illustrate. Like it was great.
Right. So the secret there is comrades. Right, you need a crew. It's easier and it's better, and that the pieces add up to more than the sum of all the parts. I think it's just
this is why we're doing the show now.
Yeah,
it's because the camaraderie of our studio of all of us being together. We really relied upon each other a lot, I thought, and it was such a good, happy kind of situation that we could ask each other for help. We could ask each other's opinions on stuff. Remember every time we'd finish a book, we'd go across the street and have sushi and some sake, whatever. Everybody gets a chance to celebrate, which was nice. It was that whole communal thing going on. It was really such a wonderful thing for us to have.
I remember we were this is something I've told the story a million times. I was struggling with the deadline, racing, because you just have to run to FedEx. And then all my studio mates stood behind me in perfect harmony, saying, "Time keeps on slipping."
No, it was too much time on my hands.
There's too much time on my hands. I would love to sing, but I have a feeling maybe it gets us in trouble with YouTube. But
right.
He's very poor Jeff is just drawing there as quickly as he can, trying to get the FedEx, and the five of us just are going.
Yeah. it was motivating and horrifying at the same time.
I couldn't believe everybody joined in. I was the one who started it, I think. And I was
Yeah.
in a really sassy mood that day or something to heckle you that way as you were like feverishly drawing over
Yeah.
It's truly
I
not
mean,
cool.
now you just scan something in and send it, and then it gets there in moments. But back in the day, you had to race down, make photocopies, put it in a FedEx box, hand it to the guy before he drove to the airport, and then
sometimes chase a truck down the street.
or drive to the airport. And
Yeah,
drive to the guy.
Jeff had figured out everything where it's like Jeff not satisfied with just normal, hey, the deadline at FedEx is 5:30. It was like, well, if you drive to the airport, you can get another hour if you just meet the guy on the tarmac.
Yeah, I mean, it's in case. I mean, everything happens, but that I think that's the final secret is be better at time management. Like be
There was another
professional.
angle to that is you were like, you were doing what I just listened to on that John Cleese book about creativity.
Right.
You were putting it off as long as you possibly could to get as much time and be as creative and give it the best possible effort that you
Right.
could in doing the book.
pushing the boundaries. So our friend Tim DeVar is a fantastic storyboard artist and director. And I remember once I was getting good at storyboards, I asked him, he'd been doing them for years. I said, well, so does it get any easier? Does this job get any easier? And he said, no, it doesn't, because the better you get, the more you push your own boundaries. So you're always,
I've been waiting for it to get easier, and it never does.
yeah, you're always operating in that area that you are uncomfortable. So you might be getting better, but it never feels any better.
Well, that's kind of if you're doing it right. And if you're not doing that, then there might be a brief period where you could kind of rest on your laurels, only doing what you've done so far, and it might actually be easier. But then in the end, that will bite you in the ass, and art will kind of pass you by, and people won't. People will be like, oh, so-and-so just keeps doing this formula or that formula. Let's go find the new guy. But if you're doing what Tim's saying, then yeah, the good news is that you'll always be employed most likely, because they'll be like, holy shit, this guy keeps getting better and better.
Right. But the bad news is you'll always have this weight around your neck that you can't seem to get rid of.
Well, speaking about what I was saying about network, or I guess it's that proverb, right? Like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that probably personifies at least a little bit more of the people in this chat and YouTube thing of Jeff and I have been friends since we were 15 and 16, and we've been mostly drawing together the whole time. And then we just found a way to do that professionally. And then we found a way to meet people like Scott and Brandon McKinney and other people to then do it in other ways. And then, the nice thing about drawing and animation is it's like having an office job, except everyone's drawing in the office job.
It's the best office job there is.
It's not too shabby.
Yeah. I mean,
we had other visitors come into the studio, and they'd be like, this is a really cool atmosphere. I can see why you guys are all really enjoying this and doing great work.
Yeah. So definitely, I think that the real secret is you don't have to do it alone, right? You from having friends, having fellow artists, having compatriots, having mentors. I think that drawing comics is an incredible expression of your singularity and your personality, because it is who you are when you're drawing. But I don't think you don't have to do it alone. I don't even know. I mean, we all do it alone. We're all in different places, obviously, but
and don't be a jerk, right? Like, if I feel like, Scott, maybe you're the first person that exposed me that thing of like the three things, like you can, to be employed, you need to be at least two of these three things,
right.
Really good, always always on time and fast, or really nice and great and easy to work with. And if you're really great and easy to work with and you're really fast, you'll work. If you're really great and you're really not great, but if you're only one of those things, you might still do okay. and if you're all three, then you're like the holy grail and everyone loves to work with you constantly. Right. You got to do at least two. And I guess I'd make the argument of like being nice and easy to work was probably the easiest of the three. So if you can tick that box, because being really good takes a lifetime commitment of trying to master art, which is no mean feat, and trying to be quick and reliable and professional and on time is probably also more controllable, but very difficult. But,
just not being a jerk.
Not being an asshole probably takes the least amount of effort, I would think.
It pays huge dividends. I was
going to say that the being nice part is important and being workable and all that stuff, but it is still one of those fine lines to me of where it can be difficult because you are effectively with comic books or even in the for your animation storyboards and whatnot, you're still working in collaboration with other people. So there gets that point of like, can you keep pushing each other in that collaboration, or are there breaking points and differences of opinion in that collaboration? How can you do that while still being a good guy and not necessarily burning a bridge? All those different kind of things while doing these collaborative pieces that we're working on.
Right.
That's tricky.
One of the secrets I discovered when I worked in the studio is that I would just bring in donuts. I mean, that's really the secret. If you just bring in donuts, everybody loves a donut. Everyone, and it eases all, a donut will ease all tensions. All right, guys. So
that's what Dexter used to do.
He would bring in donuts?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it works. Obviously it works.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that was an hour. I think
truer words have never been spoken.
That was an hour. There you go. And one of the secrets is to tell time.
Time management.
Management. That's it.
You got to know when the end date is.
All right, Steve. I know you got plans tonight. So
everyone that I thought we were talking about Bone. I hope we talk about Bone at some point. If you got anything out of this, God bless you. There we go.
We will talk about Bone.
We apologize. We'll get to that soon. So
the debate about talking about Bone is which parts do we talk about? Do we hit the first issue, or let's have the fans respond, right? Do you guys want to have us do an in-depth first issue, or hit the highlights of the series? Either way, I have the whole book, so it's I can do either.
Well, I think we all have the whole series, maybe not in one book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the book is
going to do a 96 hour, not episode, 96 hours in a row marathon. Just drinking Coke the whole time. We're going to go through panel by panel of the entire tome that Jeff has.
God, I think that would kill everyone. All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna wrap us up.
Yay!
Everyone, please go ahead and check in the description box. Check out all our various sites and our addresses, and let us know if you have any suggestions for shows, or if you have any questions, or if you want to pick up sketchbooks, or Scott has pages for sale. I know Steve has sketchbooks, and I think I might have a few of these left. If you want to, sort of all the books I've read shrunk down into one book.
A really good book.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Jeff, Scott has a beautiful banner. I may bring out my banner next time to try to compete with Jeff, or to Scott a little bit. Jeff, you might have a banner too.
You got to fancy that up. All right, gentlemen. So here's our stuff. And here is some theme music. And that is...
Thanks for playing, everybody. Give us another 10 seconds of this.
All right. You got it. Yeah.